So I think we can start. So let's have a recap of what actually we have discussed in the previous session. So I think in the last session we have discussed what is the importance of the central management console and how we can get the central management console if you would like to have the same for the purpose of an SAP BODS. So we have learned that with the two types of installations we can get the CMCs and central management console. So installation of an SAP BIBO platform and installation of an SAP IPS information platform services. So we can get the component called central management console. And what are all the components that we are going to get with an SAP BOBI platform? So we'll get something called a central management console, web intelligence, design tool or information design tool, Explorer, OLAP, Microsoft analysis tools, which client and customer, Lumira dashboards, and design studio. So these are all the different components that we are going to get with the installation of an SAP BABA platform. And similarly, if you are going to install an IPS, so you are going to get a central management console. So that is what actually happens. So finally, we learned that SAP BIBF platform plus data services. So that is what the plan of your company. That is what the plan of your the landscape and all. Or else you can go with an IPS plus data services. Either one is possible. So let's come back to the components of the data services what we have learned. So we learned that like something called as BODS designer, the server manager, the repository manager, the workbench, the license manager, and data services management console. So that is what actually we have learned. So what is the purpose of each and everything that we have understood with each and every type of component? So we will be spending a lot of our time on the BODS designer. The server manager is to provide the server so that we can execute the jobs in SAP BODS. So similarly, we have a repository manager. So in previous session, we have gone through like how actually the local repository gets created. If the local repository gets created, what are the tables that gets created in the respective data store? So similarly, we have a license manager. So what is the purpose of a license manager and all? So what is the purpose of a data services management console? So what actually the activities we are going to carry out in data services management console? That is what we have discussed in the previous session. So from the steps, the initial steps to have an integration between an SAP BABO platform and the data services, we have identified some 7 steps that needs to be followed in order to have a quick integration between an SAP BODS and SAP BABO platform. So for that purpose, first we have to install the BIBO platform or IPS in order to get a CMC, the central management console. So after that, obviously you are going to have or get an installation of an SAP BODS 4.2. So once that is completed, so you're going to create a local repository with the help of a repository manager component or module of an SAP BODS. And after that, you have to register that local repository in the CMC Central Management Console. And parallelly, so you are going to create an enterprise user in CMC. So we have to grant the rights for the user on local repository that we have registered the previously whatever the local repository that we have created, that you have to register it in CMC. Then after that, you have to associate rights. So that is also completed. Then after that, so you have to, the local repository has to be added to the job server. So there is there are a list of steps. So once these list of steps are completed, then we are, the BODS system is all set to proceed further with your development activities. So do you have any questions before I start the today's session? So do you have any questions, guys?
I have one question, Venkat.
Yes, please.
Today I was working with our basis administrator to set up security or the rights or grant rights to the users. So what I did is for all 5 of us, myself, Karen, Meena, Mike, and Don, we created local repository and we created a group called Enersys Business Designers or BODS Designers Group, and we gave full access. But still, when I log into BODS Designer using my user ID and password, the designer shows read-only. So can you show me, or show all of us how to set up designer permissions, but we will not be able to access each other's local repository, but we should be able to access our own local repository. Then I can access others' local repository for view-only purposes, but not for updates or deletes or, modify.
Got your point. So what you're saying is, so instead of reading, you want to log into your other team members' repository and you want to edit the objects in the data services. Am I correct?
No, I want to enter into the business designer and I want to edit my own. I need to have full access permissions for my local repository, but I should also have a view permissions for other local repository.
Okay, got it. But what you have currently?
What I have currently is when I log into my local repository, it is showing me as read-only.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Okay, so let me log in and show you. So I clicked on the data services management console. I have to click on management console. So I think you have gone to the data services. So I will go to any respective the local the repository. Show you. So have you gone to go to user security?
Yes.
And after that, did you verify that so the designers group is having the full control? Am I correct? I think you might have identified it.
We created a new group. We created a new group.
Okay.
New group called Enersys Business Objects Designers. And we took off the permissions or inherit from parent folder or parent group, and we gave full control owner permissions.
You have removed it, right?
Yes, we have removed it. And I gave full control owner permissions.
Okay.
But when I log in with these permissions, when I log into the designer, yes, this is how it used to show me, saying that I have full control owner permissions. But when I log into the designer, it was giving read-only.
Got your point. So, okay.
So I didn't know, maybe we have to change someplace else. So
Okay, got your point. So have you verified by granting these two permissions actually, add objects to folder, grant,
no, I did not.
grant,
I did.
edit objects?
I did not. I did not all that stuff. Okay.
Okay, not a problem, not a problem. Just try that. And
Okay.
even, so I will try to send you, I'm trying to update you in the discussion board on the training blog. Okay, so what are the steps needs to be done? You still have a problem. Okay, so we'll proceed from there.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a good question actually. This is a common problem all the projects will face in general. So yeah, good. So let's come back to the point. So we have discussed so a lot of things, like a lot of installation, a lot of the integration steps, a lot of process orientation steps between SAP BABO platform and SAP BODS. And in today's session, the agenda of this particular session would be to explain you the interfaces of an SAP BODS. So what we have as an interfaces of an SAP BODS. And so what are the objects that we are going to see? So what is the data store? And what is the file format, and etc. that we will see that. So in today's session, so we will try to understand what are the interfaces of an SAP BODS, what we have mainly. The main area would be, it is called as a project area, that is one interface. Another one is called the work area or workspace. And third one is called as a local object library. So these are the mainly the three interfaces we have from the SAP BODS designer. And the fourth one is also, we can add it actually, a tool palette actually. So tool palette, where we are going to have a list of the mainly important components that are affected here. The key interfaces means this is called the project area. So in the project area, we have a project. Under the project, we have something called as a data flow or workflow. Under that, so we have something called as a workflow. Okay, so that is what. So I will try to show you the standard, the typical way of how actually it will going to show you. So SAP BODS demo 730 MIST. So let me show you this. What are all the list of jobs that we have created? So this is, let us take an example that the job that explains you, so how actually the case transformation is going to be worked out. Or else similarly, we have the job where it is going to see that how actually the XML file extraction is possible with query transformation, how it is possible. It will explain you the same. So this is what. So here in this, we have something called as a job. Within the job, we have something called as a data flow. So how actually the data flow is going to show you. So here we have something called as an XML file. That XML file, so we are going to extract an XML file using an XML pipeline transformation, or else you are using two transformations like query transformations, query and query 1. Two query transformations, we are trying to load it into the target table of SQL Server like this. So this is the basic the flow actually that we are going to follow from the project area standpoint. And this is very, very important to understand what we have in the project local object library here. So here we have something called as a project. What are all the projects that you have designed by logging into this BODS repository that you are able to see here? So similarly, what are all the jobs we have under the project you are able to see? Workflows, data flows, transformations. The transformations are pre-built programs, so that may have a design in their language by the SAP BODS. So this is mainly 4 categories of transformations are there. As I mentioned in previous session, the course is entirely based upon these transformations. So data integrator, data quality, data platform, so text data processing, these are all the different categories of transformations. The very basic type of the transform type is a platform. What we have actually, we have a case transformation, we have a map, merge, query, validation, XML map, and etc. etc. We have. Similarly, we have something called a data integrator type of transformations. So it is a data transfer, date generation, effective date, and hierarchy, and etc. etc. So you can say that so the data platform type of transformations are useful to have a basic operations. Basic operations like if you want to route the records, if you want to merge or perform a union of records, if you want to have some validation of the records. So the things where the project is not very complex, then normally you will go for this data platform type of transformations. Where if it is go to the data integrated type of transformations, these are all very much required if you want to implement a bit more, like the complex kind of scenarios. Like if you want to implement a slowly changing dimension, if you want to implement conversion of rows into columns and columns into rows. So if you want to convert the nested data structure to unnest subschemas. So all those different type of conversions will be useful for the data integrated type of transformations. Similarly, we have data quality. So in the data quality transformations, so we have mainly data cleanse and address cleanse, geocoder, and mass transfer. There are the 4 different categories of data quality streams are possible in SAP BODS. Similarly, the 4th one would be the text data processing. Text data processing means if you have given any agnostic file, so if you have given any paragraph, 10 lines of paragraph, that is called as an unstructured data for an SAP BODS. So that unstructured data can be structured, can be converted into a rows and columns, depends upon the data. So that is entirely called as the conversion of unstructured data into structured data to identify the sentiment analysis, to draw some trend analysis, to get the address cleanse out of it or data cleanse out of it. So all the different types of categories of transformations are possible with the text data processing. So now in the industry, so from BODS standpoint, so majorly 2 transformation types are possible actually. I mean to say are mostly used by the companies. One is called as data integrated and another one is called as data platform. These are the 2 mainly used, and after that the 3rd one would be data quality, and very lastly the text data processing. The text data processing is very rarely used by the companies, and they are doing a lot of research on the text data processing from the conversion of unstructured data to structured. So that is where actually a lot of research is already going on from the SAP standpoint. So this is all about what we are going to see. But out of that, so it is very important to understand, so what is a data store, what is a file format, and etc. etc. So now, so let me open the PPT. One second, guys. Yes. So as I mentioned previously, so these are all the objects we need to have. So data services designer will give you the process of steps will be first we need to create a project job. Within the job we have a list of data flows or workflows. Within a workflow we can have a list of data flows and etc. etc. So these are all the components. So from the databases, from applications category, from files and transport category, from mainframe category, these are all the pre-built interfaces where they can connect to BODS without any coding requirements. So all these things can be communicated with an SAP BODS. And in the databases category, we can also add an SAP, but it is not updated in the PPT. You can have. So from the data stores, the standpoint, what are the data stores? So data stores within an SAP BODS are a logical connection. That logical connection will import the metadata from the source system. When I say metadata, table names, column name, column data types. So table attribute. Table attribute means that the table names, the field names or field types, these are all called as the data stores. They're all called as table attributes in the data stores. Similarly, we have application specific data structure is there. When I say application specific, so we have an SFDC, Salesforce.com, that is a cloud CRM system. So if you want to communicate with the BODS, we have a specific requirement of the communication. So similarly, we have an SAP system. Similarly, we have an SAP CRM. For Oracle App, JD AdWords, and Stable Analytics. So all those stuff, they have their own structure. So all this, the application-specific data structure also it can import into the target, into the BODS environment. That is what actually happens. So depends upon the source, the data stores are divided actually. So the data stores are mainly divided into database type of data stores, application type of data stores, and adapter the type of data stores and etc. So when I say database, so we have so many databases of course, and SAP HANA, the RDBMS systems like Oracle, SQL Server, so DB2. So all these things that are possible. Similarly, when I go an application means SAP ECC one application, Oracle Labs another application, Stable Analytics another application. So for each and every type of an application, so we have a data store. That is one thing. And the third thing would be like adapter. When I say adapter, if you are trying to communicate to any particular the third-party web services that are designed using .NET. Maybe you are trying to communicate with the cloud CRM systems. There is an SFDC, Salesforce.com. If you want to communicate with those type of data stores, we need to have an adapter data store. So it depends upon the source, the type of data stores will change regularly. That is all about the types of data stores. So that of course, as a whole, the data stores will contain a logical connection. With the help of a logical connection, you are going to import the metadata into your SAP BODS, where it will help you to read all the data structures. It will help you to read all the table attributes and etc. So this is the process actually where you have to create. So you have to go to the local object library and you have to right click and you have to select the respective data store. And since we have discussed, so what are the process flows? I mean to say from workflow or project, job and data flow. So we will see that what are all the objects mainly that gets created within an SAP BODS. When I say objects means, so the object that can be usable, if it is created one time, it can be useful in multiple places or it can't be used in multiple places. Two things are there. So when you create a job or when you create a data flow or a scripts or transformation definitions, so these are all comes under the single use object. I mean to say like the scripts. The scripts can be used multiple times. The scripts can be used multiple times, but it doesn't have any reference of the previous one. So that is what called as the single use object. The script is called as a single use object on the specific transformation definitions. The script can be used in context with the data flow, or script can be used in concept of single job. That's the reason why the script are called as a single use object. When I say reusable object, the reusable object means once you have defined the data flow, that data flow can be used in any number of jobs. But once the data flow is got changed, that the data flow, wherever it is used in 100 jobs, data flow will get changed automatically. So that is what called as a reusable object. So it has a single definition, but we can call that object in any number of like in jobs. So that is the basic understanding between the single use object and the reusable object. We will see more of more explanation whenever we start doing the development in SAP BODS Designer. Single use object means, so we can have a script, we can define a script, but the problem here is with the script. So whatever the global variables that we have defined in the single or that particular script, if you have used in different job or data flow, it has to be defined in the respective job also. That's where it is called a single use object. And reusable object means it can be called in any number of objects. It doesn't require to re-modify it for that particular job. If the usage is the same, then that is called as a reusable object. The data flow is called as a reusable object. And please try to understand, this is very, very important to understand the object hierarchy within an SAP BODS actually. When I say object hierarchy, so we are going to create a project first. The very first the step that needs to be taken care within an SAP BODS designer would be to create a project. The project will contain the jobs, several jobs actually. So those jobs will contain a scripts object, workflows or conditional clauses we have. And similarly, within the workflow, we can have a scripts, we can define a data flows, and within the data flows, we can have usage of the data stores. Again, when I say data stores, we can divide the data stores depends upon the source. If it is an adapter type of data stores, means if it is Salesforce.com or any third-party web services, we can go with an adapter type of data stores. Similarly, if it is the databases, we can have an RDBMS, related database data stores. Similarly, if the source is a file, then we have to create a file format, like flat files, XML files, XML messages in the form of a real-time job, etc. So these are all the object hierarchy within the BODS will help you which object can be called within another object. That the information, that knowledge will be provided by this particular slide. So object hierarchy. These are all the objects. Project is one object. Job is another object. The script and workflow is another object. Data stores are another object. Formats are another objects. These are all called as a different objects we have. As I mentioned previously, these are all different interfaces we have. Now we will slowly entering into different transformations. Out of that, we will see that the first type of transformation that is called as the BODS platform transformations. So we have a BODS, the platform transformations we have. So when I say BODS platform transformations, so we have the first one would be the query transformation. The query transformation is very, very important because without query transformation, you cannot imagine a single job within a BODS. It doesn't mean that the query transformation is mandatory to develop a job. No, this is not a mandatory, but it is a very good practice. So to use a query transformation wherever it is required. So whenever you're going to add a query transformation, it will give you a flexibility to, to proceed with the addition of objects or removal of an object or removal of a field names or column name, make any column as a primary, or if you want to do any hard code of the values, if you want to do all these things, so you will be able to make use of a query transformation. The query transformation plays a major role in entire, on the BODS. In fact, the SAP's, methodology is to, wherever you have a requirement of query transformation, you obviously use it. But wherever you can replace other transformations with query transformation. Let us take an example that so you can use the table comparison and map operation. So in that the context also, without using the table comparison and map operation, we can make use of a query transformation. The query transformation will help you to replace the table comparison and the map operation. So that is one of the very good, the best practices if you want to make use of the proper usage of the transformation within an SAP BODS. So that is one of the real-time scenario in that way. So let's go back to the query transformation again. The query transformation. So what are all the different processes or different advantages or features of the query transformation we can have? The query transformation features are, so the query transformation is useful if you want to join two tables actually. If you want to join, or if the data is coming from multiple sources. So one data is coming from SAP system, or another table is coming from file, maybe another table coming from database. If your sources are heterogeneous, different sources are the data is coming from, if you want to combine, if you want to join or perform an intersection between the tables, then you will go for the query transformation. And similarly, so if you want to perform the transformations and functions on a data, so you can make use of a query transformation. So similarly, if you want to do any data nesting and unnesting. Unnesting means if you see a data within an XML file, the XML file is always will be in the form of a nested structure. So that nested structure should be unnested. I mean to say should be flattened, should be converted into flat structure using an SAP BODS, the query transformation. So similarly, if you want to assign any primary keys to the output columns coming out of the query transformation, you can do that. So similarly, so if you want to have the usage of a query transformation, and the usage of the query transformation is very, very similar the SQL, the select statement. These are all the standard steps what we need to have. So I'm just trying to give you a very simple example of, so if you have an employee department, the employee department is having the two tables. which they are joined with an inner join. So this is an employee table and employee department table. So they have joined with query transformation, and the result will be loaded to another table. So that is what actually happens here with the help of an example. So these are all the different tabs we have. So select, from, outer, join, where, group by, and order by, and etc. So we have a select, from, outer join, group by, order by. So why I'm trying to show you all these things means, so please assume that the query transformation will work similar to like your select statement within the SQL language. If you know the bit of a SQL also, that is fine for an SAP BODS to understand. So because in the SQL language, you know that. So we have something called a select star from some table, where if you want to have any join, inner join or left outer join or right outer join, if you want to do any group by, or if you want to add any order by clause. So all these things are very common in the select statement. So those select statements, like with the geographical method with different tabs, you can assume that the SAP has given us in the form of a query transformation. This is what actually happens. And also there are like how actually we can call the functions, that we will see that in query transformation, and we will also see that how actually we can make use of an advantage of resources on your system, so that some parallel processing threads can be released on your system, where how actually it is going to be improved. So all those things are very much the popular or very much important from the query transformation is considered. I have a question here. Does BODS designer also have a SQL editor rather than a GUI interface? Yes. The BODS designer has a direct SQL editor. So if you want to write any SQL code, yes, we can write a SQL code directly, 10 lines or 50 lines or 100 lines of SQL code, and that code can be executed against a database, and it will fetch you the results. That can be done with a transformation called SQL transform, that we will see that. So SQL transform is an example where with the help of SQL transformation, so you are going to understand what is and how actually we are going to identify, or how actually we are going to call or fire a query against any particular databases. 1 second, guys, let me put the battery. 1 second. Yeah, I'm back, guys. Yeah, so having this knowledge, so now we will jump onto the server, and we will try to create the projects, queries, the query transformations usage, and with the different scenarios and all and everything. I think we will spend the rest of our time today so with for the query transformation, where the query transformation will help us to understand the basic scenarios of the transformations, and so usage of the basic transformation. So before I proceed, jump onto the server. Do you have any questions, guys? So please let me know if you have any questions so that I can proceed further. Any questions will be fine. If you don't have any questions, please say no so that I can proceed further. So now I'm logging into the server. So SAP user 14. Here the SAP user 14 is the owner and he has the rights. So, and Chandra, like you also need to verify one more point. So what is the properties he has? So what is inherited for that particular user? So he is the parent group. What is the parent group? So all these things also matters here. I mean to say, like whenever we are going to check the security, so you have to understand that whether some specific rights are granted or not. So two levels of security is very much important to understand. So one is it is coming from the folder, and another one it is coming from the parent. So all these things are very much required. Like if you are trying to give a rights, of course you might have already verified it, but I'm just trying to reiterate once again. So I have an access. Whatever I do normally, I will like save it in BODS local repository. That's the reason why I have just mentioned BODS. And so it is asking one more time. So yeah, I will explain you later why it is asking once again password 2 times in this particular local repository. Now we are trying to log into an SAP BODS designer. So, but before that, so you have to get the standard requirement, of course. You know that. The standard requirement I'm referring to here is so technical specification document. So because if you want to set up or if you want to proceed with your project, so obviously you have to get the technical specification doc. So what actually the technical the specifications, what you need to convert, and etc. You need to have it, right? So once you have everything, then only you will be proceeded with the technical details of it. So I have a folder here. In the folder, so I have some technical specification documents I have just mentioned here. So in that, I have one the technical specification document. So where I have to where I normally use it actually for the sales. This is a technical specification document they have given. I mean to say technical specification document in some companies they will they will what do you call as call in different formats. Normally in some companies this is not a technical specification document. This is a mapping sheet actually. What is the source to what is the target we have on our everything. So mainly for an SAP BODS guide, this mapping sheet is very, very important than a technical specification document. So because we are going to convert all the functionalities into technicalities. That can be BODS or any other ETL tool that is there in the market. So now, we will try to see what are all the sources we have and what is the target they are expecting and what are the joint conditions they are giving us. So with that, we will proceed further and we will try to load the respective data into the target system. So that is, we can do that. So here, so please observe carefully. So here we have something called as the order table, the customer table here. We have something called as an order details and product table. So these are all like different source tables we have. So from order table, the customer is expecting our customer order ID, employee ID, address city, ship city, and etc. And from customer ID, we are city, country title, and more. And order details table, these are all the fields that they are expecting here. Similarly, for products and product name, they are expecting few more. And similarly, so they are expecting, like what is the field name should have in the target table actually. So let us take an example that this table is from your source, that can be an SAP or non-SAP system. And what is the field name in your source table? And what should be the field name? See here in the source we have something called an order ID, but the target they are expecting the source, the target field name should be order underscore ID. So similarly there are some changes to the field name is considered. So the respective the data types also mentioned here, the varchar, if it is varchar 10, varchar 15 or varchar 20, whatever it is. And what are all the tables required for this activity? Orders, customers, or details table. So if this field, if you want to derive from the source system, what are all the table names that you need to have? And similarly, so what is the join condition? So all these things have clearly mentioned in the mapping sheet. So the BODS developer has to follow the mapping sheet strictly. That's the only thing that we have to do. So now, so what we will do is we will try to copy this mapping sheet into my server so that it will be easy for me. So whenever I'm going to develop, the file is getting copied into this particular location. So by the time it will, okay, we got the file here. So now what is my first job by logging into my SAP BODS designer would be to create a project. The first thing, the new project. So what is the project name? So BODS. So I will just keep like demo. So ours is the 6 AM IST batch. I will keep it like 6 AM IST. So once the project is completed, so we can have several jobs within that particular project. So that is what actually we can do. So basically project is nothing but a placeholder where it is going to have some jobs. That's it. We can have any number of jobs in a project. The project is a placeholder. It can hold any number of jobs. That's it. It is not an executable like a job. It is just a folder of files in a folder. That's it. So what is the first task? Since we are trying to understand the functionality of a query transformation, so what I will do is for each and every transform what exactly we are going to discuss within an SAP BODS designer, I am going to define one job and we will proceed from there so that it will be very easy for you guys in future if you want to refer anything. I am going to right click on the project and you can see that there are like two types of jobs are possible. So one is called as new batch job, another one is called as a new real-time job. So can you guys guess or do you guys know what is the difference between the batch job and the real-time job? Can you just give me some 2-3 lines of information? Any guesses should be fine. What you feel, what is a batch job and what is a real-time job?
Batch job is more like you are running it at a certain period of time, maybe every day, nightly, or every 3 hours or 4 hours, whereas real time is as soon as the transaction or the event happens, the job is kicked off.
So are you planning any real-time jobs in your project?
I don't think so, but
okay.
Yeah, most of them may be bad jobs, but I don't think so.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So
but let me ask you one question, Venkat. Let me ask you one question. If we have some data from CRM to be dumped into ECC or vice versa. Whenever the data changes in one system, can we push it back to the other system in real time?
Got it. So that is not possible from the BODS standpoint. So let us take an example that if you have did some changes in CRM system, so you want to immediately those changes have to be replicated into the ECC system. So that's what you have mentioned, right?
Yes, yes. On a customer record, let's say, on a customer or a prospect or whatever it is. So if is it possible for data services to monitor what records are being changed, and as the event happens, can it trigger the job to copy the data to another system?
Okay, got your point. So yes. So what I mean to say here is, yes, it is possible, but not completely what you say, Chandra. I mean to say like, so the real-time job definition within an SAP BODS is completely different actually. The real-time job definition within an SAP BODS is, if you have a requirement, the requirement is if you have ordered for any particular material, and if you want to know the response, if you have ordered something, whether, so when actually you are going to expect. I mean to say, you want to understand regarding your order, whether it is half finished, fully finished, or it is in which status. It is in a delivery status, it is in on the way or reached. So that sort of the single line of information, if you want to get it, normally you will go for the real-time job. So that is the basic, the definition of a real-time job within SAP BODS. So a lot of people will think that the real-time means as soon as any particular the updates are happening in the source system, that will automatically triggers the BODS job and it will load the data into the target system. Unfortunately, so that is not the case with an SAP BODS. So BODS is very, very popular as a badge job. Almost 95% of the companies will use a BODS as a badge job, but not a real time. The real time means it will only look up and it will tell you the status. It is simply depends upon the request and the response. That's it. When I say request, if I am going to give any material ID in my portal, enterprise portal, let us take an example in your company's enterprise portal. I want to understand the status of my material, what I have ordered. You will simply enter the material ID and you will get a response, like half finished, fully finished, or delivered, or something like that. So that is called as real time. So did am I clarify? I mean to say, like, am I explain your question, Chandra?
Yes.
What actually the real time job can do within an SAP BODS?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So, but what are the scenarios that you have explained? Unfortunately, that is not possible within SAP BODS. Do you know, like, that type of scenarios are possible with any other ETL tool that you have worked in your future? I mean to say, or maybe in the past?
No. I haven't.
Right.
I haven't. Yep.
Right. Yeah. So that is what normally happens. So if you take any ETL tool, the ETL tool, yes, it can identify the changes are happened. Whatever the changes are happened on the records, whether it is an updated record, whether it is an inserted record, that will be identified by the BODS. That is possible.
But not at real time.
That is possible. But not on the real time. That would be on the near real time. You can say that.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, and especially with the help of the SAP HANA has comes into the market, so we can have you might have heard about an SLT, System Landscape Transformation. Plus
Yes.
we can have an SAP BODS. So
Yes.
from SAP BODS 4.2 onwards, and with an SLT Server 2.0 onwards, we can you know, like the combine, or you can integrate an SLT and BODS 4.2 tightly. So what we can do is we can do now a bit more of a real-time data transformation is possible. Rather than doing a bad job, transformation on the bad job, we can do more of a near real-time transformation is also possible with that, actually. So with SLT 2.0 and BODS 4.2. So that is possible, but not on the exact real time. No.
Okay, another quick question. You mentioned that Chandra, BODS can identify changes. For example, I have a customer file. Our customer, like in our ERP system, there may be 20,000 customers. Okay, for the first time, we send that file to BODS, and all those 20,000 customers will be inserted into SAP system. But let's say next time when I run a dump of customers from my source ERP system into a flat file, I may get same 20,000 because no new customers have been created, but maybe 100 or 200 customer records have changed in the file. Now, can I tell BODS to look at the file and only bring in the changes of these 100 records rather than loading again or overwriting or updating all those another 19,900 records to cut down the time?
Got your point, Chandra. Right. So you have maybe 100 or 200 the customer IDs. So you want to bring only the newly entered customer IDs. Am I correct?
Newly added customers or updated customers or modified customer records only.
So you want to bring those and you want to add it into the target system. You want to insert into the target system, or else you want to update in the target system. Am I correct?
Yes, you are right. You are right.
Okay. Yes. So the BODS can do. The BODS will do a comparison of source with the target. Okay. But what BODS will do is, let us take an example that in the initially, if you have loaded maybe 10,000 records into the target system, like an SAP or whatever it is, I'm not talking about an SAP purely, I'm talking about a SQL server. Okay, I'm talking about a pure functionality of an BODS. So when I say file, initially you have loaded a 10,000 records into the target system, and next time you got 10,000 plus another 100 records, plus some records got added. Let us take an example. So the BODS will compare the 10,000 plus 100 records with the target 10,000 records, and it can identify the inserted records plus updated records. It will do an update or insert as an update or insert as an insert. That is also can do. But a comparison of source records entirely with target records can be done with the BODS.
Okay. So if, another question in addition to that is, if my source system, I have got only, let's say, only 15 to 20 fields, okay, but in my target system, I am defaulting or I am using some other rules to define the rest of the fields. Can I tell only compare these 20 fields? I don't want you to compare the rest of the fields because those fields don't exist in my file or my source system.
Yes, we can do that. Not a problem. Yeah. So because for the comparison is considered, yes, we can do a comparison. So with whatever the comparison that you want to do. But as for the loading is considered, you should be able to in a position to tell the BODS, please make it as some optional fields so that it won't give you any problem while loading into the target system. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so this is how actually, so we are going to establish or distinguish between a real-time job and the bad job. But so most of our time, so we will try to focus on the batch job in our course because the real-time jobs are not very important, but we will see one or two scenarios in that. So now I'm trying to create a batch job. So I will follow some naming conventions, JB underscore. So what I need to have something called as query transformation, query transform underscore the 6 a.m. IST batch. So that is what I have mentioned here. So this is a project now, and this is a job now. So now, so what is my next step? As an object hierarchy, earlier we have seen in the slide. So what we can have as for the slide? As for the slide, we can have something called as, where is that object hierarchy? I missed it. Yes, this is the object hierarchy. So within the project, we can have a job. Within the job, we can have a workflow. Okay, so that is what it has mentioned actually. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to define a workflow. So where exactly I can drag and drop the workflow? This is a tool palette actually. So in this particular tool palette, we have something called as a workflow. Click on the workflow and place the cursor here and again click here. Because it is a workflow, so WF underscore again the query transform underscore the 6 a.m. IST. So that is what I have naming convention I have just mentioned. Double click on that. Again, go to the tool palette and click on the data flow here and place it on the workspace. So df underscore again the query transform underscore 6 a.m. IST. So that is what I have mentioned here. Okay. So this is the object hierarchy is considered. We will see that what is the difference between the workflow and the data flow. But for now, just try to understand we have a project and we have a job. Within the job, we have a workflow, and within the workflow, we have a data flow. So that is what actually we have mentioned. Okay. So just try to understand that this is the hierarchy. But so we can directly create a data flow in a job. It is not required to create a data flow within a workflow. So that is what actually as for the logic or concept is considered. As for the hierarchy, this is the hierarchy that you have to follow. So one project can have several jobs. Similarly, one job can have several workflows. One workflow can have several data flows and etc. But within an SAP BODS designer, data flow is the lowest level of granular object. Lowest level of object where the object will contain your actual ETL logic. Actual ETL logic means source, the target, extraction. Actual ETL part will be there in data flow. If you are trying to load the data into into one table or into multiple tables, so you can have the usage of a data flow. So an object within the BODS which will handle the ETL logic is the data flow. That's it. There is the blindly you can say that. Now, so we have seen that the mapping sheet is available with us. So where actually the tables are. So where actually the tables are and from where actually the tables are coming from and from to where actually we have to load it into the target system. So let me log into the SQL Server. Let me show you so where actually these tables are referred actually. So my source is a SQL Server. Yes, we have logged into the SQL Server now. Under databases, we have the taken like the sample database that is called as a Northwind database. In this, so we have something called as the categories, the customer demographics, customers, employee territories, employees, so order details, orders, products, the shippers, suppliers, territories. So these are all the sample tables from sales domain. So that the SQL Server has provided us, and I'm going to consider those sample data, and we will proceed with the rest of the ETL activities. But before that, you can also perform the basic understanding of the data also. So the shippers data, so what it is going to give you, the shippers table will have something called a ship ID, shipper ID, and what is the company name and what is the phone number of it. We have something called a supplier for that particular supplier. So what is the data we have for the supplier standpoint, like what is the supplier ID, company ID, contact name, the contact title, address and city. So all those stuff we have. Similarly, order details. So what actually the order details we have. So what we have, the orders table. Order table will have a customer ID, employee ID, order date, required date, shipper date. So how you want to ship via, the ship name, ship address. So all these different kinds of information. So that is already exists with this particular sample database. Now I am going to consider this particular database as a source in order to perform the activities of the ETL. Now this is time for us to go through, so what actually we need to have, so in order to extract the data from. So what we need to have first, as the mapping sheet says that we need to have 4 tables: orders table, customers table, order details table, and the products. So how we need to get it? We need to get it from the SQL Server, not in the database. So how you are going to establish a connection to the SQL Server from the BODS using the data store? So what we have to do now, first we have to create a data store because we have to establish a connection. So go to the data store, right click, go to the new. So here you will say that the SQL Server DB. If you have any particular the name of the data store, you can also give that. So we have a different types of data stores, as I mentioned previously. Depends upon the application, depends upon the databases, and depends upon the files. The data stores are divided actually. Okay, so but basically we have 3 types of data stores. One is a database type of data store, another one is an application type of data store, and third one is an adapter type of data store. There are 3 types of data stores are possible here. So because we are referring to the SQL Server as our source, so our database, we will consider database type of data store. If it is a database type of data store, let us see here what are all the different databases it is referring here. So we have something called as an utility connector, data federator, DB2, HP NewView, Infomix, SQL Server, memory, so MySQL, NetJava, ODBC, Oracle. So all these different types of databases are possible. Out of which, so we can have an SAP HANA, so we can have a Teradata or SQL Server, etc., etc. Now the database version of the SQL Server is the 2008, that is there on my system here. And now what is the server name on which you have a SQL Server is installed? Because the server is, this is a server, so SQL Server and BODS and everything is installed in this particular system. You don't have to worry, so simply you can say that the server name, so the same server name, EHP6. So, but in general, in real time in your project, these data stores are created by your basis guys in some companies, or else they will give you the username and password for the developer itself, and developer is going to create the data store. That is what actually happens. So in the projects wherever I have worked on, normally they used to give the server name, username and password. Normally they use in Windows 8 authentication. So it will be like your the same username and password with which you are trying to log into your the Windows machine. So here, so we have to give so what you call as the database name. So here you have to provide the username and password. Welcome. Where it's gone wrong. So you use it. Okay. Let us see here. It is not the wind I have given now. Yes. So here I have given the W as in capital letter. That's the reason why it has thrown the error message. Now I just click on OK. See here, the data store what I have created is the SQL Server underscore DB. I have created a database type of data store because my source is a SQL Server. And what actually the information, so I have mentioned there, I have just simply mentioned a logical connection to connect to the SQL Server. So that is what actually I have mentioned in the SQL Server, the connectivity standpoint. And similarly, so yes, please, yes, Chandra.
If you bring up the screen again, there is one checkbox called CDC. What does that CDC mean?
Yes. So here the CDC means change data capture. The CDC, the main important, the part of the CDC is, so let us take an example that we have two scenarios. So earlier you have mentioned like, you are referring to the file, right? So if you have a file, in a file we have something called as a customer IDs. You are going to load it into the target table, target database, then you are going to add some more, and BODS has to compare it and BODS has to load it. That is what actually we have discussed. But in comparison also, we have two different methods of comparisons actually. So I mean to say like, comparing all the 1,000 records or 10,000 records with the 1,000 records is different. Comparing 1 lakh records into 10,000 records is different. I mean to say like, so let us take an example that we have a file, we have a database. Let us take an example. And we have something called another database. Let us take an example. So here we have, in the initial load, we have a 10,000 records, and those 10,000 records I have loaded into the target system. Okay. So after that, some records got updated here. Maybe 100 got updated. Another 100 got added in the source. Added and updated. So total record count is this is the total record count in the delta. So there are like two types of methods are there. One, compare the 10,100 record with the 10,000. Then update the respective updates like 100 updates. And insert 100 inserts. I mean it's the records. That is one method. Or BODS has a capability actually to identify only 200 records.
Yep.
Because only 100 are updated and another 100 got inserted. Only do those only get only BODS will get only those 200, then compare with the 10,000 records. So that is what actually the basic difference between. So comparing the 10,100 is to 10,000 is different. Comparing 200 to 10,000 is different. So this process is called as a CDC. So, but basically this process is currently is available with Oracle, SQL Server directly.
Okay.
Okay. So if it is an SAP systems, let us take an example. If it is an SAP systems, if you are trying to bring the data from SAP actually, so what you can do is you can make use of an extractors, you know, right? So extractors are standard ABAP programs where we can have some standard inbuilt, the delta mechanism is already written in the ABAP code. Those extractors can be used in SAP BODS. So that is possible. But if you want to do specifically from RDBMS systems, Oracle and SQL Server, and recently from 4.2 onwards, they have also introduced an SAP HANA also in picture. So all these things are quite possible with this Oracle or SQL Server. With you know, like SAP BODS. But for that CDC to you know, like identified, for that CDC to active, so we have to do a lot of configuration changes in the SQL Server database. Like we have to define some replication agents. See here. So if you go to the SQL Server, we have a lot more has to define actually. So on the table, so we need to have something called as replication agents. We have to define. So the storage that needs to be changed. So all these different types of scenarios are there. So you have to define some replication agent. You have to define. So all these things should configure first on that particular table in the SQL Server or Oracle. Then only even if I check the CDC, in that case only it will work out. Otherwise it won't work out. Okay, getting my point, Chandra? What I meant to say here?
Sorry, Venkat. Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
But what you are saying is it is only possible with the databases, but not with the files.
Right. It is not possible with the files. Yes, you're right. I mean to say. So the BODS always can do the above approach. If it is a file or if it is something XYZ. But if you want to do a very you know, like the performance based comparison, if you want to do, it is not possible with the file as a source. If it is a Oracle or SQL Server, it is fine. Other than Oracle or SQL Server is also possible. But we need to have some connectors should be installed between Oracle. I mean to say, let us take an example that your database is a DB2. So no, BODS doesn't have an activity. Sorry?
Ours is Informix, Venkat. So do you have the same functionality with Informix?
No, the Informix, I mean to say the communication to the Informix to the BODS for the CDC is not possible.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, yeah. So we can have some other third-party connectors. I mean to say, if you see Attunity connector, you might have heard about an Attunity connector. Attunity connector is like log-based CDC. So in one of my projects where I have worked on, we don't have a Oracle or SQL Server as a source. So we have a DB2 as our source. In that case, we have to use an Attunity connector. Attunity connector will do a CDC, and those records, my BODS will get only those 200 records, update or inserts. Then I'm going to compare them to the target system. Then I will do an update and inserts. That is what actually we did. So now, let us come back to the BODS designer. So we have something called as query transformation, the workflow query transformation, data flow query transformation, as for the process is considered. Now, by taking the mapping sheet as a base, what is the table that you are expecting? So that is very important. Now, if I expand the data store, what we have created now, see here we have something called as functions, tables, template tables. We will see a difference between the tables and template tables. But if I click on the table, I don't have anything here to consider. So that's the reason why I double click on the data store. See here, I did a double click on the data store. It will list out what are all the tables I have in the Northwind database. In the Northwind database of this particular server, what are all the tables it has? This is called as the metadata. This is called as metadata. A lot of people will think that the BODS will store the data. No, it is going to just import the metadata. That's it. Okay. So now, as for the mapping sheet, what is your table? Actually, the orders is your table. Right click and import the data. If you go to here under tables, you see a table called orders now. And similarly, so we have customers and order details. Where is that customers? So let us go to the customer table. Right click, order details. After that, we have something called as products. So these are all the tables we have. So order details, customers, orders, and products, and there are the 4 tables that we require as per the technical mapping sheet. Now, what is the logic to derive the first field? They are expecting order underscore ID from orders table. Okay, what is the logic? They are saying that get orders dot order ID in order to get a order underscore ID. How can I get an order dot order ID? Orders dot order ID is a field name in the orders table. So that's the reason why now I am going to simply drag and drop the metadata what we have here and make it as a source. First thing. This is the metadata. What is the metadata here? If I double click on this, you are able to see that order ID, customer ID, these are all the table attributes. Table attribute means column names, column types, length, all these things called as a table attribute. If I double click on this, it will show you, see here, so what is a table name? What is who is the table owner? The data store name, database type, all these things are possible. Similarly, from performance standpoint, these are a bit important, the concepts, but normally this is not like useful in the industry. But from SAP BODS performance standpoint, these are all important actually. So joined rank. Joined rank means you are saying BODS depends upon the cost statistics of the query and all. Which join you have to consider? Which one you will give a first rank, a second rank, a third rank? You will give a rank to the what do you call as database or whatever it is. Similarly, we have something called as an array fetch size. Array fetch size is in a single fetch, how many records the BODS will fetch it. That is what actually happens by array fetch size. The maximum value of an array fetch size will be 5000. In a single fetch, maybe in a nanosecond, it will fetch the 5000. I mean to say, if you have to load the 10,000 records into the target system, so it will hit the database 2 times actually. So similarly, if you have a 1 lakh by 5000, those many number of hits, those many number of the connections, I mean to say those many number of the input and output, the operations will happen. If you increase the array fetch size, it will reduce the number of input and output communication between the SAP data source and your respective BODS system. So that is how actually the performance will be increased. So similarly, if you want to maintain any cache, yes, by default, because it will increase the performance. Sometimes there are some scenarios. Yes, please. I have a question here. So please use 100,000 rather than 1 lakh. I mean, say here the value you mean to say? Yes. See here. So I have defined more, but it won't take. So in scenarios, what it will say that it will accept the value, but while loading, it will clearly says that it is fetching only 5,000. It will tell you while running the job in the trace log. I think you might have observed it in trace log. It will show you how many records are getting loaded actually, and in a single page how many records are getting fetched. So it will accept the value here, but at runtime it won't consider those 100,000 values. Okay. This is all about basically what you call as the orders table. So orders table, this is the table, and now what actually the customer is looking for? Customer now have a requirement of get all these fields. Now I will place a query transformation because I am trying to select some records, some column names actually. Double click. See here the query transformation. Where actually I have taken the query transformation? Query transformation I have taken from the tool palette, or I can take the query transformation from the data platform transformation also. You can take it from the tool palette, or you can take the query transformation from the data platform transformations also. So both one is possible. Okay, because the query transformation is very popularly used and very frequently used. The query transformation got placed in this particular so what you call as the tool palette actually. Okay, the query transformation. So now, as per the technical specification mapping sheet, so we have something called as an order ID here. And what else we have? The employee ID, where it is an employee ID. And what else we have? Ship address. Now ship city, ship country. Ship city, ship country. Okay. Ship name. Okay, so something like this. These are all the different join conditions we have. Order ID, employee ID, ship address, ship city, ship country, and ship name. So these are all the different the column names that we need to have it. And what it is saying here, it is saying that the order ID and employee ID are keys here, the primary keys here actually. So the primary keys here. So what you can do is here, right click on the order ID, and it is already says that it is a primary key. Here the symbol is called as a primary key. The symbol is called as a primary key. Now you can make it this one also, right click and make it as a primary key. Okay, so this is what actually this is how actually we are going to define as a primary key. So simply right click, and if you don't want to do a primary key, you can remove the primary key. Even on this also, if you don't want to use it, you can use it as a primary key. But the primary key is by default defined in the source system itself. That's the reason it got cascaded here. So now, what it is saying now we have a second table. That table, from that table, another the 5 columns need to be extracted. But in order to get city, what is the condition? It says that join orders.customer ID and customer.customer ID, then get the customer.city. As you know that, how actually the functional guy will say to us, the functional guy will say to us is, please pass all the customer IDs from orders tables to customer table, then get the city name. That is what, like normally the functional guy will say. So as a technical guy, so we have to understand and we have to convert those conversations into our technical stuff. So now, so what is the table that we need to get the customers table now. So customers table. So go to the data store again, have a customers table. Simply drag and drop and make it as a source. Now it clearly says that from the technical the mapping sheet. So we have to join orders.customer ID and customers.customer ID. So now in order to join, I have to make it these two tables into or connect these two tables to query transformation and double click. So now in the query transformation, we have two tables and we have to join two tables. Normally in select statement, what we are going to do, where the customer.customer ID equal to orders.customer ID. So here also the same. In the where clause, you can simply drag and drop the customer ID from orders table, and you can say that customer.customer ID. Okay. And from customers table, what actually it is saying? From customer table, please consider city, country, what else it says that? It says that contact title, customer ID, company name. On what else? Company name. Company name. Yes. So these are the information that the user is expecting from the customers table. Now, once this is completed, so what customer requires now? Now customer says that order details. From order details, please get the product ID. But how to get a product ID? Please follow this join condition. What is join condition here? Once you join the orders.customer ID with customer.customer ID, get the orders.order ID. Once you got that orders.order ID, just pass that order ID to order details.order ID, then get the product ID. So that is a very lengthy join condition that you have to follow. So in order to follow that, what I'm going to do is, it clearly says that whatever the output that is coming out of a query transformation, like what we did actually, we have joined two tables. What is those two tables actually? Those two tables are orders tables and the customers table. What this logic says that after joining this order table and the customer table, whatever the order IDs you are getting, please join those order IDs. Please join those order IDs with order details table order IDs. Then whatever the product ID is coming, that product ID customer is looking for. Then for that, what I'm going to do now, I am going to simply drag and drop the order details table, make it as a source. And now, because the output of query transformation now should be joined to order details table. For that, I'm going to place a query transformation here. Now, what I'm going to do, the output to another query transformation and order details also would be passed or should be connected to the query underscore. Now, double click. The output of the query transformation is nothing but whatever the orders.order ID we are getting here. Now, so go to the where clause, query.order ID. So that is equal to what is that? They are saying that orders.order ID. orders.order ID. And by joining these two, what they are expecting? All the fields coming from the query transformation, and in addition to that, I need to have a product ID from the order details table, and also I need to have a discount. What they are saying discount, how they want to get a discount. So join order table and the customer table and get an order ID, then pass the order ID value to order details.order ID, then get an order details.discount. So how we got a product ID in the similar fashion, we have to get a discount. So similarly the quantity, so similarly unit price, so similarly product name. So all these things have to be get it in the similar fashion how you got a product ID. So that's the reason why you can go to the order details table and you can simply drag and drop the discount. And similarly, we need to have quantity and unit price, and so all the things that they are expecting. So after that, unit price, right? So once these are all completed, product ID, discount, quantity, and unit price into the target system, we need to have one more that is called as the product name. So how actually they are expecting the product name? So that is a very important point. The product name would be the product name. How we are going to get it? The product name we have to get it from the product table. So simply drag and drop the product table here. The product table. So data flow here. We have something called as a product table here. Make it as a source. And the output of the query transformation again should be captured under output and the product table. So now, so simply make everything into the target system. Simply drag and drop here. And what actually we need to get it from the products table? I need to have from the products table would be product name. I need to have the condition would be, if you observe carefully the mapping sheet, whatever the output coming from the product ID, output of a product ID, that should be equal to the product ID of products table. So that is what actually happens here. So now in the where clause, here you take a product ID and the product ID is the products on the table. Now, so we have completed the end-to-end mapping actually, end-to-end the mapping as per the mapping sheet provided by the user. So first we have joined orders table and the customer table. The output of query, the output of results after joining between order and customers, I have joined order details table now. Once I have joined the output to order details table, I have joined to the products table now. The products table output is also passed on to the query underscore 2. So that is what actually we did now. So now finally load it into the target system. Now, so initially all these fields, all these the tables are coming from the SQL server. Now, so we can consider a file, we can consider like a SQL server, we can consider any RDBMS system other than the SQL server and etc. But in my demo system, the SQL server is so very very easy for me to explain for the SQL server. If it is a source, it is very easy for it to navigate the SQL server database and to show you the data. I consider the SQL server as a target even. In order to consider the SQL server as a target, what I am going to do is, I am going to what you call it as create some target database here in this particular SQL server first. So whatever the data is coming from the Northwind database. But whatever the data that I'm going to load it, For that, I'm going to create one new database here. So what is the database? So target SQL Server DB. So this is the target database actually. Okay, so create a data store once again. Because while extracting, we have communicated with the SQL Server. For that, I have created a data store. By loading into the SQL Server also, we need to have one data store that needs to be created. SQL Server 2008. Is in PHP 6. This is the database. User 14. I have created one more data store here. See here, target SQL Server underscore DB. So that is what I have created here. Okay. So now, whatever the table that we are going to create in the target system, that table should have all these fields. But before proceeding further, so let us verify what are the fields that customer is expecting and what are the fields I have. The customer is expecting a field name, something called as an order ID. But here I see that there is a field called order ID but not an underscore. Right, double click on the column and in the name you can mention simply order ID. Similarly, the employee ID, you can double click on that and then you can make it as an underscore and you can click on it. So similarly, we can have ship address, we have ship city, we have ship country, ship name, city, country, contact title, customer ID, company name. Yeah, instead of company name, he is expecting customer name. So what we have to do? So we have to do right click, customer name. Similarly, we have a product ID, right? So instead of product ID, we need to have product underscore ID. Similarly, we have discount, quantity, unit price, and product name. These are the things we have from the query underscore 1. So this is how actually we have to rename it. So we have to rename the column names to what customer is expecting. Now, two things are there here. So we have to load the data into the target system. So we can ask your DBA to create a table with whatever the field names the customer is expecting out of this particular the query transformation. Or else, instead of creation of a table in the SQL Server directly, the BODS has a capability to create a table directly onto the database on the fly. So that is the feature is called as a template table feature. If we go to the, this is called the tool palette, right? In the tool palette, we have an option called template table. So we are going to create a template table in the data store in which you want to load the data into the target system. Where is that? This is what your data store in which actually you want to like load your tables, or you want to store your the table data into that particular respective database. Now what I'm going to do is, what is the table name that you are expecting? Maybe I will say like sales of US region. Let us take an example. So just click on OK and I will connect. That's it. So what actually happens here, what are all the field names we have? Those field names will get created in the respective data store of this particular SQL server. Okay, so now right click on the job and we have to execute. That is the next step. So whatever we did till now, it is simply a mapping. It doesn't load, it doesn't extract anything, it doesn't load anything into the target system, it is not going to do perform any logics, it is not going to do perform any join conditions, it won't do nothing, it doesn't do anything actually. So that's the reason why, so in order to perform all these transfer of data, all these join conditions, all these things, if you want to perform, so you have to proceed with the simply execute on the job. Only job is an executable object here. See here, whenever I click on the workflow, it doesn't give any option to execute. Similarly, execute on the data flow, it doesn't give any option to execute. So only the data, only the job is an executable object. Right click and execute. Before that, it will ask you what are all the changes that you have done on the job should be saved. And this is 4 different tabs we have mainly. One is called an execution option. Execution options are important to improve the performance in sometimes. To collect more of a statistics here, see here, collect use collect statistics here. If you want to do some editing, or like auditing while loading the data into the target system. So where exactly load got failure in case. So if you want to do any like enable recovery, we will discuss this recovery mechanism later on, where we are trying to load it into 3 or 4 tables, but suddenly the second table got failure. So instead of running the job starting from the table 1, we can continue the job loading from table 2, and that is what called as a recovery mechanism. So what all we need to have, so we will see that, but for now just please concentrate on the only the job we have, and I'm trying to execute the job. In order to execute the job, I need to have a job server. That is a very important point. There are like several job servers to where my local repository is associated with that. So let me show you whether I have an access or not. Go to the start, go to the programs, data services. So we have something called as, not repository manager. We have to go to server manager. See here, there are like a lot more we have. Out of that, so our job service 3589. It's running on the 3589. See here, this is the job server. If I just click on edit, see here, my local repository, BODS is my local repository. This local repository is associated with the job server 3589. Similarly, mine, all other repositories are like SAP User 14, SAP Demo Profiler, SAP BODS. There are the 4 repositories where these repositories also can be associated actually with the job server. That is what actually happens here. Okay, so this is what. So once you have created the local repository, you have to come up here in the server manager and you have to add here. So here you see an add button, right? So in the add button, you have to give the same username and password for that particular 3589 port. On this particular port number, the job server is running on actually. Just click on OK and OK. Okay, this is part of your basis activity. So if you are an end-to-end basis and developer, you can do that. Otherwise, you can take a help of your basis guy. So right click and execute the job. Save it. Normally, if it is millions of records, if you are trying to load it, we are going to uncheck this particular option because it will take a lot of time. But now we don't have very more like we have only few records, so we will try to keep that option and we'll try to execute. Let us see whether job will be successful or job will be a failure. If it is a failure, where it is a failure. See here, please observe carefully. So which one got started actually first? Can you please let me know which one got started? So whether job is going to be start first, or workflow is going to be start first, or data flow is going to be start first. Guys.
Job.
Okay, which one is going to be complete first?
Data flow.
Right. Yes. Once the data flow is completed, we can say that workflow is successful. Once the workflow is successful, you can say that job is successful. So this is how actually we are going to proceed with the usage of a query transformation. Now we have all the information like order ID, employee ID, ship address, ship city, ship country, ship name, all the invoice related information is there in this. Okay, sales invoice actually. So this is how actually we are going to proceed with the usage of a query transformation. So in tomorrow's session, we will see more on the query transformation. So how to call the functions in the query transformation. So instead of doing the inner join, so till now we have gone through at query _1, at query _2, we have gone through the query transformation. I mean to say the inner join. So without like using inner join, so when actually we are going to use an outer join, what are all the scenarios, and that we will see in tomorrow's session. So we will spend another half an hour to 45 minutes tomorrow regarding the query transformation, because the query transformation is very important and very mandatory stuff. And after that, we will go to the rest of the transformations. Okay, that is so we have all about. So do you have any questions, guys, before I wind up the session for today?
Question, is the output normally sent to a database? And if so, does that not create a lot of databases? It seems like there's a lot of overhead to SQL in doing that.
Can you repeat once again, and can be more louder, please? Your voice is a bit low, if you don't mind.
Louder. I was asking, is that typical to have the jobs, the output go to a database? And if so, does that not end up creating a lot of databases, a lot of overhead for SQL Server?
I got your point. Yeah, I need to say, like, anyway you have to store the data, right? So somewhere you have to maintain either data warehousing system, centralized data warehousing system, or else you have to replicate the data. In either of the cases, you need to have a database. That can be an SAP, you need to have an underlying database. That can be a CRM system, you need to have an underlying database. That can be Oracle Apps, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards. Civil analytics, you need to have an underlying database. Wherever you go, you need to have a database where the data has to be stored. So it all depends upon the company to company. But in general, if you have a database ready, then it will facilitate a lot of reporting tools, like the flexibility to create a report out of it. So that's the reason why what you call as the database can't be an overhead. So it is actually a way, or it is actually a good landscape where it will provide a lot of flexibility to the business intelligence process. You know that, right? The ultimate goal of any particular company is to implementation of a business intelligence process. So it will facilitate the business intelligence process, but it is not going to degrade the performance. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, carry on please if you have any questions. Yes, instead of a database, we can also have the output into the file. That is a very simple. So you have to go to the query, and so you have to simply right click and create a file format that we will see. We will see tomorrow. Okay. So please remind me. Okay. We will see that scenario. So any questions, guys? If you have any questions, you can also put in the discussion board, so that so I will see, and I will try to reply back. Okay. If any questions that you cannot ask me, or if you are more comfortable in writing, so please mention in the discussion board. I will try to answer that whenever I find time. Yes,
thanks.
Sandra, I think you were saying something.
No, I was just saying thanks.
Okay. Okay. So if you don't have any questions, guys, I will likely jump on another call. So if you have any questions, you can always ask me. Yeah. Yes, please. Mike, do you have any questions?
No. No.
Okay. So I thought today I gone a bit fast. Is this fine, guys? Especially Karen and Donald. Mike.
Yeah, it is okay for me. Donald, Karen, Meena, and Mike. Is it okay for you guys?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, great guys. So thank you very much. So for your time, and see you tomorrow.